Welcome to the GMS Magazine podcast. I am Paco Garcia, one of your hosts, and this is a podcast all about role playing games, board games, and the people who make them, sometimes the people who play them.
And this has been Chris. This is Chris. No, it has been. This is Chris from DSX Macana. How are you?
I have a little bit of a headache. I am not too bad, and I am absolutely shattered because of work. But other than
Yes.
that, peachy.
Other than that, peachy. Well, like I said, it's been definitely an interesting couple of weeks. We had a couple of really good interviews.
Yes, of which
We
I have only listened to one. I have to say, the last interview you did, I haven't had a chance to take a proper listen to be honest.
well,
So,
first of all, we had the Andrew Gasca, and once again I do
mhm.
apologize if I got a little lovelorn or a love obsessed with Andrew.
You
Uh,
geeked out big time.
it was hard not to massively geek out after we concluded the interview. Him and I talked for another hour. It's just like we're very much birds of a feather. I'm 100% confident that if I was living in the States, I'd be crying. But if I was living in the States, or if he was living in Canada, better thing to say, we would be very very good friends. We'd be hanging out on the reg. So it's very wonderful person. I'm overjoyed that in that the franchise is in good hands. A little frustrated, I think, that he's been kind of cut out of the reboot.
Yeah,
That upsets me a bit, to be honest.
I am confused about that move. To be perfectly honest, I just don't know why that could possibly happen. I can't imagine him being a difficult person to work with.
Hmm.
I don't know because I haven't worked with him, but I
Yeah.
don't think he would be. I don't think anybody can question his knowledge
Hmm.
on both the matter and role playing games because I've just finished reading Heart of Darkness,
Yeah.
and this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible because it is an adventure for the Alien game, which Andrew wrote, and it's actually manages to, although there are xenomorphs and there is all the perfected and everything surrounding the franchise, it doesn't. There's everything to do with the franchise, but there isn't the feel that you're recreating the movies. It feels like something different, and
Yeah,
that
that's
is
one thing I
difficult to do.
appreciate about that. His interpretation, his imagination. I love his somewhat pragmatic approach to canon and how there's so many people's theories of explaining things and so forth. We're both definitely interested in seeing what happens with this new Alien Earth TV series that's coming out in June, and we both share a lot. We were talking about the fact that my wife, for some strange reason, is binging the Alien series, but she's doing it in chronological order,
Mhm.
which Andrew was very much objecting to because he's just like, you need that mystery of the first Alien movie. The start with Prometheus is not much of a surprise once you get to Alien because you know everything that's happening. But we even played through the Alien Isolation. We watched a game movie of Alien Isolation, which is, according to Gasca, the only video game that is full canon that actually pairs itself with the rest of the franchise, which I really appreciate. I did, however, we're at Aliens, and Nicole has said that it is her favorite film of
Mhm.
the whole series. And she was just like, I'm looking forward to seeing the sequel because I know she's in it and I know Hicks is in it. And I said, kinda. And she's just like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, I'll say that they took a very interesting approach with Alien 3.
Mm.
Nowadays, they would never have made a film like this. And I just said, I'm just like, she's like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, I don't want to say anything, but I you know, Andrew Gaskin and I both talked about the fact that the Alien franchise has a level of nihilism, and it is part of that kind of cosmic horror aspect of the setting, but it's never seen in a more picture like iconic fashion than Alien 3, probably the most nihilistic version of the entire series.
Agreed.
And to feasibly end a bankable franchise with with such a downbeat chapter, I'm like, wow, they filmmaking's a series of choices, and they made a bunch. Then we did the interview with David Gordon, the game designer who is doing the FinSpan game.
Mm-hmm.
And I found him to be a wonderful, wonderful person. I did not realize, well, I did realize, but I didn't realize that it is still possible to be a freelance gamer without your own company, that you could just be a game designer who then sells his services to other companies. I didn't think that was something that actually happened as often as it did, and he's one of the exceptions. So he has he has published something like 9 games. Like he's had his name on 9 games in the last year.
Blimey, that's a lot. He's busy.
Yes. Yeah. Like the FinSpan, he's got 2 games. He's got like 3 games coming out between now and the summer. He just had what is one of the first Lego franchise games, actual Lego board game, which I thought was amazing. He's got a wonderful looking sci-fi game about the cosmos being published by Asmodee. That I am really interested in. Being Asmodee, the production design is off the charts, but being Asmodee, it's also really expensive. It's like $75 Canadian, which would probably be $60, 60 euros probably, which is a little expensive for my blood at the moment, but it looks fantastic. But yes, wonderful guy. We immediately became friends on Facebook. Really wonderful guy. That interview, is that up yet or not then?
No, that is going to be the next interview that will go up, which is going to be this coming week.
Absolutely. So that's our recap of the 2 interviews that we've done so far. This was our first standard program in over a month, I think.
Well, actually, we have a third interview in that case, because I released yesterday my interview with Alex Chamorro from Infinity Fiction.
I saw your link today.
Yes.
Was that the interview that you didn't know was going to go up or not?
Yes, we did discuss whether that interview was going to be a good fit for the show and for them. And after he listened to the interview, he said, "Hey, I think it sounds really good. I didn't say anything too stupid, so let's go for it and let's publish it." Which I thought, yeah, okay, sounds good. So
good. Yeah.
he was happy to take the risk. I did ask a lot of pretty hard questions.
I thought they were fair questions, though.
Oh, well, but fair and hard can go together. And I didn't. The thing is that, and this is why I would want to have him back at some point. We didn't really talk about the game itself. We didn't talk about the world, what it has to offer, what it comes up with, or how the characters are going to be expanding, how adventures are going to be run. We didn't really talk about how the platform works. We only talked about how the AI aspect of the whole endeavor is going to be working, and what kind of, well, from the safety measures to what is the future, how are people going to be, paid for their work, so on and so forth. So, whereas I concentrated more on the technical aspect of what Infinity Fiction is going to be, there is still an awful lot of things that we can discuss and talk about when the Kickstarter comes out in the next few months. So I'm looking forward to that, and see also what the reaction of people is going to be.
Yeah, I absolutely. I look forward to seeing the reaction and seeing what happens as this program kind of moves forward. Yeah, absolutely. So that was just a kind of our recap. Obviously, we have a big topic to discuss that's happened just recently.
Yes. Recently, Ernie Gygax, Gary Gygax's son, passed away after some ups and downs over the last couple of years. This has not been the first time that he was close to death, and just like any Icarus flying too close to the sun, his wings melted and Ernie just couldn't take it anymore. Which is, I don't know, it's kind of unfortunate. I am not going to badmouth the man because I didn't know him well enough, but I know an awful lot of people who did. And they speak of him well enough to make me believe that he wasn't the asshole that some people are claiming him to have been.
And go ahead.
So, sorry, I just wanted to finish. I know I do have my issues with him, because of uh, some things that he said that upset Janelle Jacques quite a lot at one point. And that did, I have to say, make me question his character at the
Yeah.
time. But other than that, I don't really have anything bad to say about him. And I don't think that what he said, sorry. Oh, sorry, humans, I had to cough. I don't think what he said would make me feel or believe that he was a horrible human being. So I would
And
not
that's kind of
badmouth him.
yeah, then that's part of the conversation that we're having about a couple things. The fact that um, so I'll do a quick recap of what's happening.
Mhm.
So yes, it's been heartbreaking. The story his brother posted. Uh, I have been involved in several situations where somebody that's close to us has been near death's door, and people have raced to be by their side, and and in situations I've been, there's there have been thankfully the person that was about to leave hung around long enough for the family to gather. And that was something like it happened with my father, it happened with my aunt. It just seemed like there's some type of driving force that keeps them around until the family gathers. So it was kind of disappointing that Ernie's brother couldn't get there in time.
Mm.
And it's sad to hear that story. And I know his brothers probably they're all hurting right now. Um, but then, of course, not long after, the news started to get shared, and we saw the same thing happen. Oddly enough, it happens quite a few times. After somebody passes, people start going, "Well, here's all the things that we didn't want to say to his face when he was alive," type of thing, and it pops up, and it started to come to light, and some people started to put a needle in it because there is the unfortunate connection that Ernie had with new TSR, which many people attribute to them basically just trying to get his name attached to a product to give it some legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this resulted in a few people um, making a couple snide remarks on N World, and it came down to a couple people, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was this belief that Ernie was attributed to having written a few things that got exposed in the TSR and WotC lawsuit,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in reference to a section dealing with the WotC lawsuit, which talks about um, and I this is something this is as we skew into this topic. I did not realize Star Frontier's New Genesis was I knew it was toxic. I knew it was written by toxic people. I did not know it was that overtly racist. I did not know that it was as bad as people said. So supposedly, and this is in sequence here, a guy who is part of Wizard Tower Games
Mm-hmm.
was approached to do the editing for Star Frontier's New Genesis (SFNG), um, and he was he was one of the whistleblowers that leaked information to Wizards of the Coast detailing the content in New Genesis because, as he has said, he has the only complete copy of this book with all of his notes, all of his numerous notes about what they needed to change. And one of those notes became something that you can find. You can actually see it. There's an image you can find that shows all the different races, and and he has big red letters pointing to the section where he talked about the Negro subrace, which was
Jesus
an
fucking Christ.
did you not know this?
I heard some things about it at the time, but I completely blanked it out because I was so tired of
Oh
that
my
company. That
god.
was
hit the ground. I could not believe that they would have the Negro subrace and with a limit on their intelligence.
Jesus Christ.
So of course the editor's like, stop all engines. This needs to be changed, removed. Whose idea was this race? Racial BS. Like, this cannot go into the game. And that's his note in a circle with a big saying, stop. And he also says Nordic. That needs to go also. And so we're not going to get into the top bill race, but obviously this was, he eventually, like, he did not do any more work because he knew that they weren't going to change this stuff. Some of this believed, some of this genesis and this link became connected to Ernie in some tangential fashion. So upon his death, a couple groups started to rag on him. There was a couple people on the N-World group, specifically in the Full and Glorious History of New TSR, which is a link that was started in November 2021, which got a lot more attention after Ernie's passing, as people started republishing what they thought were scathing attacks on his character. There was a few people. Gradine was a poster on that forum. That person has had their account deleted because they kept on repeating these things. And then came the group Ancient Dungeons and Dragons, which is on the surface a very progressive and very leftist leaning D&D site, which in itself is really good. But they started getting a lot of flack because they went after Ernie the day after he passed, despite him being a member of that group all the way up until his passing. And people started, and the moderator, one of the forum admins, started posting really inflammatory aspects about his character, which, you know, regardless of their truth or validity, which we'll get into, basically they used it as a kind of a trap. If people were defending it, they would basically get kicked off. And so there were a couple of people, including Polly Kidd, a very famous, I do believe, a trans writer, who said, I have left the Ancient Dungeons and Dragons players group. The page creator comments on yesterday's death of a problematic major figure in the role-playing game were full of hatred and immensely disrespectful to a family in grief. If you want to be a real leftist, realize that our core must be of empathy. We strive for better things for everyone. Hatred and vitriol does not become us. We can be strong, we can fight, and we can also be decent human beings as we do so. So that came down also. And the strangest thing, this, on the opposite end of that, we have Dungeon Hobby Shop, and we know how volatile and toxic they are. They did a post on, I guess this is Facebook, where they said people need to, no, this is on X. People need to report any Gizmodo, N-World posts, and other media sources spreading the untrue crap about Ernie Gygax. The trash needs to be take out Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was tagged.
What the hell?
I know that was just like, wow. So eventually, the guy from Wizard Tower Games, who also is on the Vlog of Many Things, he went on Tenker's podcast. Well, he actually brought Tenker on. So this is part of the Vlog of Many Things, although it was on Tenker's podcast, where they came out, and he came out and said, look, I was the editor on this program. I can tell you, like, he was the one that basically sent this information off to Wizards of the Coast, which spurned this information. And he has said, without a doubt, any accusations that Ernie was part of Star Frontier's New to Genesis is completely untrue. And they reported he has no involvement with that publication whatsoever. And they although they said the fact that, has he said or done things in his life that are a bit or worthy of criticism, sure. But the vast majority of the people right now are going after him because his connections to Star Frontier's New Genesis, of which he has had no connection. And so that's the video that went on in Tenkar a couple of days ago. That's been the fight on N-World. Basically, Morris and the other moderator basically saying that we're not going to have this discussion now. and the information is becoming quite clear that there's a lot of evidence that points that Ernie, while he seemed to be in a situation where he was in a relationship with some of these toxic people, he was not directly involved with this product that so many people are associating with him.
It's it is such a mess at so many levels. On the one hand, I am one for speak ill of the dead. I don't have an issue with that. They're dead, and that is it. But, and this is a big one, there is a family grieving, which means, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to say something bad about Ernie, at the very least have the decency to make sure that whatever it is you say can be proven and it is true. Secondly, have the further decency of, at the very least, wait until the family has had some time to grieve. Because right now, the problem with talking shit about Ernie is that you are not hurting his legacy. You're hurting the family, who've done absolutely nothing to deserve it. Nothing at all. When we shit on somebody like Lovecraft or, I don't know, any of the racist assholes that we are so used to shitting on, you are not hurting anyone else other than them. And right now, look, Heidi, Gail, they're all hurting quite a lot. So they don't deserve it. They just don't deserve it. So for the love of God, just wait. And if you need to say something, make sure that it is well researched. But there's something very important that I think that we as leftists sometimes forget, and is nuance.
Yeah.
As I said, I did have my issues with what Ernie said because I saw a dear friend really upset about it. And I am very protective of the trans community because they are the ones who have it the worst within the LGBTQI plus community. So I was like that. But that doesn't stop me from rationalizing what he said, why he said it, at what point, and who he is within the age context. And I am not either one to say, oh, he was a man of his time. Well, there were many men of their times who weren't assholes, And I'm not saying that Ernie was, but he did say some things that were horrible. I'm not going to condemn the character, the whole character of the man, because of one thing, when there are so many people who speak so highly of him. I'm just not going to do it. And that kind of nuance, and this is not me trying to, have my own little medal of I am more nuanced. No, I'm not. I really am not. But we do forget that we need to be a little bit kinder and more gracious than just shitting on somebody. And to be perfectly honest, if you are saying bad things about Ernie now because you didn't have the guts to tell him to his face or to the face of his social media when he was alive, you are nothing but a shitty, cowardly asshole who doesn't deserve to say anything bad about anybody. You either speak when you get the chance or shut the fuck up. But don't shit on people just because they are dead now, because you didn't have the guts to tell them when they were alive. That is beyond puerile. That's dreadful.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say to that, while I agree 100%, whenever we pop up with that comment, and it's true in a lot of ways, but it can get abused when someone says, don't speak ill of the dead, let family grieve, and so forth. Those are the two things people say whenever something like this happens. And I'm like, when it comes to something as on topics like this regarding where we don't have all the answers and so forth, and I always remember And for those people who go back in time, but I remember this because this happened, that after Gary Gygax, Ernie's father, passed away, the same thing happened within within a couple hours. On the same day of his passing, there were articles and people making posts um, trying to diminish his character or attack his character after the fact. And I can't remember, and I may have point to forget who this was, but there was a game designer who made a post about, Gary Gygax is dead and I don't care. And and we're all just like, I don't know who that person is because we're going to forget him because no one's going to know this person exists in about a month. And to this day, I don't know who that person was, but I can guarantee you that they are not in the gaming profession anymore because they're morons. Like, you don't do stuff like that. So unfortunately, this is not uncommon. Somebody passes away and everyone takes that opportunity to kind of, they celebrate them, and then there's a bunch of people that want to badmouth that person. And having said that, I'm also a person that says that sometimes when people are saying, let the family grieve, sometimes I go, well, there are situations. It's not an absolute rule. There are situations where, um, if a truly evil person passes away, and we talk negatively of their character, people will say, have some respect, and I'm like, no, we don't. It doesn't. It's entirely on a case by case situation. When God, um what was his name here? The one guy, he passed away. He was a politician, and or at least a political figure who passed away. He was an American political figure. Um, and let's see here. I want to see. And I can't remember his name, but he was an older fellow. I know people are going to be blasting now who I'm talking about, but he was a very famous American politician during the '70s era, who has, to his credit, numerous war crimes around the Vietnam, Laos, and region. He's such a famous name. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name now because I don't want to waste too much time on it. Um, but after his passing, people started to come out and say, "Hey, by the way, just in case you remember, this guy was a horrific human being with some stuff. When Rush Limbaugh passed away, I made a post like the next day saying, "Oh no, guys, I'm not gonna to respect the families of grieving dead. Rush Limbaugh was a horrific human being, and I'm glad he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
If something were to happen to Donald Trump tomorrow,
Oh, I'll be dancing on his grave.
we would be dancing on his grave." So whenever someone says you have to, respect the grieving, no, you don't. You do not need to respect anything regarding somebody who's passed if that person is evil. This is not that scenario. But for me, I have issues with people that say the idea of respecting the dead and respect grieving families is an absolute rule. It is not an absolute rule.
No.
It applies in this situation, but it's not an absolute rule. So that is something that's absolutely true. But I don't like it. I personally don't like it when people are hiding behind that. In this situation, that applies. But for me, people keep on saying you have to respect grieving families. Like, oh, that you say that as if it's an absolute rule. It is not an absolute rule. It applies in almost every situation, and it applies in this situation. But I don't like people sharing as an absolute rule because we're going to have because people were going after people attacking Rush Limbaugh after he passed away. And I'm like, no, no, no.
But that's what I was talking about earlier, nuance.
Yeah.
There is nuance, and also, quite frankly, the damage that somebody like Rush Limbaugh did is cosmically larger than any damage whatsoever that Ernie could have possibly done in his entire life. So, come on, a little bit of perspective, for goodness sake. Ernie might have said, even might have done a few horrible things. And I am not going to sugarcoat that. He did. But that doesn't mean that his entire persona was that level. of asshole. I'm sorry, that's no. I have said some absolutely horrendous things in my life, and I am absolutely sure that I still hold some views that if people knew about them, they would be considered to be absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are things that I make absolutely no apology about. You know, anybody who's heard me talk about hunting and hunters will know what I'm talking about. But that doesn't mean that my whole persona is that hideous. So perspective. Let's do a little bit of perspective, and let's leave the Gygax family alone for a bit because it's just uncalled and unwarranted for what's happening to them, and it's not fair. It is just not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those situations where I think definitely we should celebrate the achievements these people have done and in respect their passing. And like I said, uh, one thing one person said, which I this same person was a Tower Games, had said in that video, where it was the one thing about our generation is the vast majority of our screw ups don't have a permanent record. We're very lucky the fact that all the stuff that we did when we were young hasn't carried through. Like my career and if not my whole, if my public reputation would probably be in shambles if some of the things I said in my teens and in my early 20s made it to the public sphere before I started to learn. Like, beyond the fact that I was a religious person in my teens and in my early 20s, I went through a massive crisis of faith, right? I have gone through a lot of, I wouldn't say, I don't think growth, that feels like I'm self promoting, where I've gone out and I've tried to apologize to people for stuff that they had completely forgotten about because you start to gain empathy. It's amazing what it's amazing what getting a finding the love of your life and realizing sometimes it's you find the love of your life. Sometimes as you have children, you're like, oh, I have to think about somebody else, and it's shocking. I fortunately had to end a friendship last week or a week or two ago, and with someone like who wasn't toxic, like they weren't racist or sexist. That would be easy to say, well, this person's, doesn't share my values. They're a Trump supporter. And that's an easy severance to make. It's much more difficult to simply say, like we're not aligned on what it means to be friends. I have a certain status. There's certain things I need from my friends. I need a level of support, and I don't need someone that is waiting around for me to fail and then say, well, I told you. And then I say, well, you never did actually. You just stood by and let me fail without helping or at least trying to comment. And I just like, we're not friends. Like, we're not going to be friends. Like, this is not a relationship that I can have in my life. So cutting that person out. But I also took responsibility for my contributions to that relationship and how I helped it bring it down as much as the next person. That's a layer of that. But I'm so glad some of the stuff that I said as a youngster. That's one of the things I tell about people today. It's like, well, we dusted off this horrible thing that Bernie Sanders said in the '80s. Like, oh my God, did you see? Don't you remember what what this person said? And there were some people. I remember when Donald Trump was running for election. It was like, oh, we're gonna like he said this horrible thing in the '80s, and I don't give a shit what any of these people did 30 or 40 years ago. There is something of personal growth. I want to know what they're saying now, what they're believing now, and what they're going for now. Yes, they can take responsibility. Like we have a politician, our prime minister, Justin Trudeau, who's been the target of the most vitriolic right wing propaganda. Like he is getting it worse than any Canadian politician in the history of Canadian politics. Basically, claiming he is the next. People have called him fascist. They don't know he's a liberal. He's a liberal semi-socialist who's got some some shady deals in his past, and he's made some decisions that haven't been great. But to say to say that he's this horrible person, like, you have no idea. You are just quoting propaganda quoted from Russia. I mean, I didn't vote. I actually didn't vote for. I voted further left. He's middle center to middle right,
Okay.
and I actually voted farther left. And he's actually stepping down, but he's been getting a lot of positive buzz because he's been standing up to Donald Trump, and because of that, his popularity has skyrocketed. Even though he still announced his resignation, and the guy going to replace him is insanely popular. So our conservatives, who were basically cruising to a majority government, are now fighting to see if they can even get a minority, let alone even get in the office, which is a good chance they won't. But that people used to bring up, oh, Justin Trudeau, when he was in high school, went as blackface to a Halloween party, and they would use that constantly. And I just he took responsibility for it. He said it was a bad choice, and he apologized. I'm like, great. That was 30 fucking years ago. Talk about his policy. Like, the past doesn't matter. And so that's where I look at when people talk about legacy. Did Ernie say a few things or do things? Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, I never considered him like, oh, it's not like everybody else's. Like, he was a peripheral player in a group of incredibly toxic people. Go after that group. Target that group. There's like, they're spending all this energy going after Ernie. Like, spend all the energy talking about the shitty human beings that are alive and now that are damaging your existence. Like, it's like, Ernie didn't really hurt you, and he's not going to hurt you now. Spend that energy going after people that are actively screwing you over at this very moment.
Exactly. That's why I said, this is not the right thing to do. It's just not the right thing to do. Ernie wasn't that damaging to anyone else. So I think, yeah, again, people should stop. So shall we move on?
Yes, absolutely.
I have an announcement to make.
Oh.
And I didn't tell you about this announcement because I only thought I am going to make this announcement now. Oh. So I cannot get out of it, because once it's out in the air, I have to do it. I'm going to publish a role-playing game.
Oh.
Yep. I have written a role-playing game, a solo journaling RPG that I am going to crowdfund in June, one way or another. And all the proceeds are going to go to charity.
Wow.
The game is called Closet.
It's called what?
Closet. As in coming out of the closet?
Oh, closet.
Yeah.
I thought it was corset.
No,
like,
no, come on. That's my next game. That's going to be the BDSM version. No.
I'm like, I'm listening.
No, closet.
Okay.
Closet.
Called closet.
Closet. Let's see if the auto-transcriber can pick this properly. Closet. And it is going to be a awareness raising game about the problems and situations facing gay men when they consider coming out of the closet and what the environment is. So there is a gay game for straight people, especially for straight men. So yeah, I'm doing it. Yay.
That is fantastic. Is it going to go crowdfunding or is it? Wow.
Yes, I'm going to crowdfund it because the game is already written. My husband is doing. It's a very small game, so I'm not going to say I've written the whole thing in 2 weeks. Of course, I've written the whole thing in 2 weeks. It's about 8,000 words. It's not a big, massive game at all. It's a zine game. But I thought I wanted to do some campaigning and some awareness raising, and I thought I'm tired when people ask me all the time, oh, when did you come out? And I said, well, I just did to you now. we come out all the time, but coming out for the first time to your friends and family is an incredibly difficult and traumatic experience for an awful lot of people. And sometimes the circumstances around you even will make you stop that process and get you back in the closet so you never come out. That's why we have so many people in their 50s and 60s coming out when they feel that the time is right for them. And this game explores that by getting people to write a journal based on what happens around you. So you're going to draw a number of cards, and those cards are going to give you the roughly monthly situation that you're living in. So some cards will be about yourself as a person, a gay man, finding out about your own sexuality. Some are going to be about your family, some about your environment, and some about some as in environment, as in social environment, and then some about your work or school environment or college. And they will give you a little bit of what it is like to be a man coming out. Some of those situations are going to give you some pride points, which will help you build the support network you need to come out. Some of them will give you some bigotry points, which will give you some reasons to get back into the closet and not come out. If you draw 4 aces, then your situation is fantastic, and then you can come out without a problem. If you draw 4 kings, then you're never going to be able to come out because of whatever. It is as simple as that. But the people who have taken a look at it have actually found it quite powerful. It's a kind of game that is going to be played not for fun.
I can imagine, yeah.
So there, I said it. So now that I've said it, I have to do it.
Exactly. Now you're pot committed. You have to follow through.
Yep.
And may I suggest as a maybe an expansion? Oh, that's actually maybe an interesting idea for a board game. I think what we should do is design a board game about people trying to get out of a cult.
Well, yes.
It's different types of characters. Each character has their own little bespoke abilities. Some of them have their own reasons and justifications for wanting to get out of the cult. This is a unspecific religious cult. And the objective of the game is to find a safe space.
I can see that. I can see that happening. You see, I can really see that happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were already a role-playing game, a storytelling, journaling solo kind of game about that, because it would be very, very easy-ish to create a game like that where you have to write a journal. There is a game I absolutely adore called Horse Girl.
Horse Girl.
Yes. And is a solo journaling game about a woman who's been turned physically into a horse by the love of her life.
Wow.
So it's basically an allegory of what it is like to be in an extremely toxic relationship with a manipulator and try to get out, and how difficult it can be, and how even if you manage to get out, it is never, ever without scars from the ordeals that you have to get through until you get the strength to come out of that relationship. It is an extremely powerful game, and one that I would not recommend people to play very often. But if you ever thought about doubting how tough it is to get out of a toxic relationship, play this game. I dare you, play this game, Horse Girl. It can change minds. It is that powerful.
Well, yeah, it brings up that topic about, like, there are games that get made that we try to, like, there's been part of this. not to toot my own horn, I did a video for a Dice Tower, which is a 45-minute retrospective on this war of mine, and why it was it was both a brave attempt to recreate the video game and make it more traumatic and more difficult to win, but also failing to then push the envelope in really serious ways. And it's a topic about the attempts that people have made to create games, either role-playing games or board games, that have it's not even trying to touch an allegory. There's a direct connection to real world allegories. Like I said, I have anti-religious allegories in a lot of my stuff. Affinity, Amethyst both have anti-religious allegories in it. There are allegories about slaverism on certain aspects in Amethyst. Affinity is absolutely about trusting in religious figures. But we talk about board games that have, and I don't mean like this is a board game that retells something in history. And we've absolutely seen numerous board games that have been incredibly controversial, not because they're trying to propose an allegory, but because they've been incredibly offensive. But more on the more positive, talking about board games that have that positive spin of having the creators making a point. You brought up Horse Girl and in your project. On another topic, did you ever hear a game called Consenticle?
The name does ring a bell, but I've never played it, and I don't think I've ever seen it.
It is a board game that got quite popular for a very short period of time, and the entire game is a consensual sex scene between a character and an alien. And it's also it's a whole story dealing with positive sexual traits as well as obviously a consensual sexual encounter. That's why it's called Consenticle. It's quite literally in the name. And it's a very important story dealing with a healthy sexual encounter. And of course, being a board game, they decided to twist it, and it's with an alien. That's why it's called Consenticle, because it's both playing off of a serious topic while also playing off of let's have some raunchy alien sex art. But it got a lot of attention. A lot of people in my circles were talking about it. And a few people I know did back it when it came out. I think I want to say some time ago. I can't remember. It's probably a couple of years. It even has its own Wikipedia entry. That's hard enough as it is. Raised $154,000.
Blimey.
Yeah, it's actually 2018. It came out in 2018. Successful campaign. It won the Impact Award at Indiecade in 2015. But yeah, that was the game that came out some time ago. That dealing with that type of subject matter, or something that was trying to raise awareness of a specific concept and idea.
Interesting. I had no idea. I think I will definitely want to look at that one and see what it is like. So yeah, that's it's interesting how this is something I said when the U.S. elections came out. And I did a video in TikTok, which, by the way, I have completely abandoned, and I will come back to you. I promise. TikTok, I will come back to you. About using games as a means of resistance and using games as a political tool, because games are political, because everything is political. And thinking and working on Closet, I thought, how much more we could do with gaming if we actually put our minds into it and people gave a chance to these kind of games as a learning tool, not just about history or the world itself, but about ourselves and the connection that we have with people that we don't usually relate with. And I wish we had more of those games coming out more often.
Yeah, exactly right. It's exactly right. And I think that, and for me as someone, and this is where my position falls into this, being who I am and what I am, it's impossible for me to responsibly address some of these topics. So it's one of those situations where I would certainly love to help anybody, but it's one of those situations like, Chris, you want a game about, that deals about these type of characters? And I'm like, it's like, only Spielberg could make Schindler's List. Like there's a point where you have to have that type of thing. I like playing around with allegories. I love throwing that in there. Like, Affinity has two allegorical races that have that have that have trans allegories basically infused right into their structure. Um, and I don't think like I can do that. And someone says, like, is this an allegory? I go, yes, absolutely. It's like, do you want to lean on it? It's like, it's like if I wanted to lean on it heavily, it would be somewhat disingenuous. Like there's a reason why the Wachowskis made the Matrix the way they did it. And the fact that it's so the fact and in the irony, the fact that it's been a trans allegory since the day it came out, and people only figured it out in the last 5 years, alienating all the right wing red pill blue pill assholes that realize that they have been copy pasting the trans allegory all this time. Uh, but I think it's important that they are the ones that created that message. I feel no matter how well I try to construct that message, I'll never be an authority on it. I would love to help kind of create those type of messages, but ultimately, I don't think I have the place and the position to author those type of narratives. So I'm really celebrating whenever I see games like that. Um, and I'm always open to play all of them. I mean, even Dixits.
I think you make a very good point, because one of the things that I do mention in Closet is that the game is about a gay man coming out as a cisgender gay man, because I don't have the experience or the information to do a game about a trans person coming out, or a bi person coming out, or a non-binary person coming out, because I don't have those experiences, and I wouldn't know if the prompts that come with the game would be doing justice to the struggle, the position. So that is something that I hope, once it comes out, I hope that people will take over and will create their own games based on their own experiences. It would be absolutely brilliant if we could have a series of Closet, about gay people, about trans people, about non-binary, about pansexuals, about asexuals. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So hopefully that will be the case. We'll see.
Yeah, when I was writing Amethyst, both the novels and the games, in the novelization, there are new, like the main character is escaping out of the Catholic Church. Why? Because it's exactly what I did. And when I criticize religious figures, when I criticize the religious cults, there's never a point where I'm like, oh, is this thinly veiled to be, Jewish? Like, no, it's always Christian. It will always be a Christian, because it's and the fact that and the irony of the fact that there is a very much a positive religious character in Amethyst is an extremely positive, very popular, one of my favorite characters. But I made him a Muslim because I was like, I'm not going to criticize that religion, so I made it a positive character. But I'm going to go after Christianity because that's what I got out of. So like I choose like the personal topics. And it's less like, well, then why do you attack white people? I go, you know, why do you?
Hello, look at me.
So it's one of those situations and that's why, you know, you never make jokes about short people. Brad Garrett can make jokes about short people because he's short. His entire routine is one of the most hilarious things out there. But because he suffers from dwarfism, and he makes those jokes. That's his routine. We get to laugh at his jokes, but he gets to make those. That's the rule. I get to make fun of white people. I get to make fun of white heterosexuals. I get to make fun of toxic masculinity. I get to make fun of all of that. I have a very large spectrum of shitheads I get to make fun of. That is one thing I think the greatest part about being a white heterosexual man is I have a lot of people I can point my finger at with someone calling me a bigot, like, oh, I have got the range of assholes. And the part of it is because, once again, going back to what we said at the beginning, I'm happy to say I was never that bigoted as some of the people we see today. I was never that. I was never in that Joe Rogan manosphere when I was young. I was always a nerd, geek, playing video games, secluded introvert. But it didn't necessarily mean I didn't occasionally have those types of thoughts, especially in my semi-incel mid-20s, where I was just like, why is no one having sex with me? Because you suck, you know? there's a lot of personal growth that have to involve on that. But yes, absolutely. I think there's room for those types of titles, and I look forward to seeing more and more of them, and I can't wait to celebrate Closet when it comes out.
And that it will. Okay, so we've been going on for nearly an hour, so I think maybe
Yep.
we should stop it for today, and just say to humans, thank you very much indeed for having been there. As always, your presence is very much indeed appreciated. And please do get in touch. Email me podcast@gmsmagazine.com. I am on Blue Sky, not as often as I would like to do, because sometimes I just don't know what I should be, blue skying or bleating or bluting or whatevering about. But I'm still on Facebook also, so say hello, and I would love to hear from you.
And this is Chris from Deus Ex Machina and Tavern Snaps. Boy, this is going to be the year for crackers. I'm sure I am going everywhere. For the month of April, I have 3 trade shows I'm attending.
That's quite a lot.
And like I said, my Kickstarter is launching. It was going to launch in a week. We pushed it back another week, so we're launching in 2 weeks now.
Okay, I will be talking about that an awful lot when it comes out. Even before, I'm gonna, I'm going to make a list so loads of tweets come out in Twitter just because I can.
Thank you.
So we'll see if that works. So anyway, human beings, as always, we love you very, very much, and we'll talk to you very soon indeed. Take care.